It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
.06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Thursday, and I normally say I swear I could see the weekend from here, but I'm not so sure because it got smoky out there.
Today's show is sponsored by frog-flavored ice cream. Tastes like chicken, but it's frog.
Wow. Okay, gross.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilet, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Jim, you nailed it. Jim just sent me a note. He's in Casper. He said, in the old days, in the 80s, you had to go outside when you were at the bar to get out of the smoke and into the fresh air. Today, being in the bar would be better. And, yeah, that's true. So I wake up this morning, and my eyes are burning, and my sinuses don't feel good, and I can smell the smoke really bad. And I sleep with my windows slightly cracked open on nice nights like this, and so, wow, that's bad. All right, so I start looking into what's going on. Step outside, the moon, which has been looking really good the past few nights, yellow. Really bad. Okay, so where's this fire? And I can tell it's close. All right, so I start looking into it this morning, and I do have an article up if you want to see the pictures and details of this on the Wake Up Wyoming site. Miss Mary will alert it out at some point. But, okay, yesterday, sometime later in the not late, but later in the afternoon, I was noticing, wow, there's a lot of thunderstorms out there. Little thunderstorms all over the place. What I didn't connect at the time is that means a lot of lightning and not a lot of rain. And so those lightning strikes have been popping all over the place. Now, some of the worst of it, if you go up I-25 almost to Buffalo, it's just a little southeast of Buffalo, but real close. That's the biggest one. And that fire has been jumping out and making other little fires. And we get up into places like Gillette, for example, up in Campbell County. They got some good ones out there, too. Also, if you're down around the Casper, Douglas area, there's fires out in that area, out in the counties and so on. So, yeah, just a lot of little ones all over the place. But the main big one, though, is just right up near Buffalo right now. There's other fires out there, like over in Du Bois, they're dealing with one. That same thing. A lot of little lightning strikes all over the place, sparks up these fires. And that's been going on since yesterday. Roads have been closed and evacuated in some areas as they continue to fight this. All right, so the reason you're smelling the smoke so bad for those people who are in places like KC and Midwest and Edgerton and Casper and Douglas, places like that, the reason you're smelling it so bad also in Mills is because the slight breeze we have out there, which isn't much, has been pushing that smoke southward all night long. So that's just concentrated it in those areas. Now, later today, this morning I should say, but a little bit later, let's say a little bit afternoon, the winds shift direction. And again, these winds haven't been much. They've barely been moving. But it actually starts to pick up speed. You'll see flags starting to move, and it starts coming in the opposite direction. It's a southerly wind moving north. Now, if that happens that way, that could be really good news for the firefighters, because that means the fire will be pushed back into areas that already burned. They will need to get out whatever they can, as much as they can, before the weekend. Because we get into the weekend, then the wind shifts again from the west moving east and picks up quite a bit. It'll be a bit on the windy side, breezy, quite a bit breezy this weekend. And if we still have fires out there, then you know what happens. And it's a dry season, even though we have some afternoon thunderstorms. And we will, according to Don Day's weather forecast, we'll get some more of those thunderstorms over the next couple of days, but that also means some more lightning. And it's been dry out there because it's mainly a dry season right now. So with those lightning strikes and the grass being so dry, here you go. And that's what we've been dealing with. Yes, the firefighters are out there in full force right now, and I'll keep you posted on, in fact, let me go ahead and check it right now. I know yesterday we had a long conversation throughout the program about I-80 being closed, and that was for quite a ways from Cheyenne to Wamsutter. That was because of a jet fuel spill on the interstate. Okay, here we go. I didn't know about this. They have closed I-90 between Buffalo and Gillette is closed right now. Also, Highway 59, which goes north to Montana, is closed right now due to fire. It says right here, roads closed due to fire as of August 22nd at 1:36 a.m. Estimated opening time is unknown. Parking on the roadway is prohibited. So if you were hoping to get between Gillette and Buffalo, if you had business going back and forth between the two, not right now. That whole section is closed. Now, there's a way around it. It's still going to be smoky if, let's say, you're in Buffalo or Gillette. There's highway, let's say you're in Gillette. Get on Highway 14. That's out by the airport. Highway 14 can swing you up and around down to Claremont, and eventually it becomes Highway 16 if you're trying to get to Buffalo. If not, stay on 14, and eventually it'll wind back up to Sheridan. So there's a big loop around if you want to do that. But 90 is closed between Buffalo and Gillette right now because of all of the smoke in the area. All right. Wait. We'll see what the wind does. I'm hoping that change in wind direction sometime a little bit later on, either late this morning or early in the afternoon, that change in the wind direction ought to help them a lot. In the meantime, for those of us who are living in the area where the smoke is, I'm inside, and this is, as you know, a pretty well-sealed booth, mostly because of sound. But I still have to get air in, right? And that air, we have some pretty good air conditioning units here with some pretty good filter systems on it. But every time it kicks on and starts to blow some air in here, my eyes start to water. Despite the filter systems, it can only do so much. And my eyes are itchy right now, and my sinuses have been bothering me all morning long. And that's the way I woke up this morning. So I know a lot of you are dealing with that. And just when we were getting rid of the smoke from California and up in Canada, just when that stuff was starting to go away and we had some really nice clear days, then we get some lightning strikes and all of this starts. We also have to watch out for the thunderstorms that will happen this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon. What will that spark? Are they going to build big enough to make some real rain and help the firefighters? Or will it be like yesterday when we had a lot of little thunderstorms build up that were mostly lightning and not a whole lot of rain? Either way, stick with us. We'll keep you posted.
Warning.
This show contains sarcasm that some listeners may find disturbing. A sense of humor is advised. Chat with Glenn live on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
6:22 is the time. Hang on a second. I'm just sending a note to some friends up in Gillette. I'm looking right now at some pictures that were posted on social media by Rosa Smith, night pictures of the fire out in that way. And again, if you're wanting to get between Buffalo and Gillette right now, the interstate's closed because of all the smoke. And that was a lot of lightning strikes yesterday across Wyoming. The biggest of the fires around the Buffalo, Gillette area. And then there's a whole lot of other smaller ones all over the place on the eastern part of the state, which is where a lot of the smoke is coming from. If the wind direction changes, that could give firefighters a break, pushing the fire right back into what it's already burned, and that should happen late this morning or early in the afternoon. We'll see what happens with all of that and keep you posted, including on that interstate closure. Oh, by the way, yesterday, for those who hadn't heard, the reason I-90 was closed, it was a jet fuel wreck. So somebody had pulled over I think it was on the median, to pull over somewhere to fix a flat tire. And a truck was going by, and I guess swerved to miss something. I wasn't there. I didn't say exactly how that worked out. Driver of the car is okay. The truck wrecked. The truck driver was taken light flight into the hospital. He's recovering. Jet fuel spilled all over the highway. And the main problem with the jet fuel is if that were to ignite, imagine the fire. Yeah. So, all right, that's why 90 is closed now and 80 was closed yesterday. All right, moving on to some other stuff because I'll keep you up to date on the fire and smoke situation as the morning goes on. So I got some numbers in about Tuesday's primary, and I had to think about this a little bit this morning. Voter turnout for this primary was really low. Now, some of what happened with that, we had a lot of turnover of some big names in politics in Wyoming. Like, for example, in our House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House, who's been there for 24 years, is out, replaced by a lady who's a bus driver. A lot of that happened, and the Wyoming Freedom Caucus has a much bigger footprint in the Wyoming House of Representatives especially. But results like that were in all sorts of different races all over Wyoming. And I started to wonder, why the low turnout? And why those kind of results? So I developed a couple of theories. I'm just going to toss them off here, see what happens. One theory is we didn't have a big push like we did last time around. We wanted to get rid of Liz Cheney. That would have brought out a lot of people. But we don't have that this time. But then next is the problem with the whole crossover voting issue. And now that, of course, is if it's mostly Republicans running. Mostly Republicans are running. Very few Democrats or Libertarians or Constitution Party. Very few independents in Wyoming. It's mostly Republicans. So, of course, the primary is settling most of the election right then and there. Because if you're in a district where no Democrats or any other party is running, then the primary election is the election. That's the general election. So people from other parties will go jump, switch over to Republican and vote in the Republican primary, then switch back. And they think they have a right to do so because, again, that's when everything's being settled. The Republicans' argument has been, look, it's not our fault if the other parties didn't show up. This is our primary. It's supposed to be for Republicans only. So the Wyoming legislators apparently fixed that, changing the dates when you can switch back and forth. You can't do it on the spot. There's a big wait between when you can register and when you can switch parties. Did that affect the voter turnout? That means a lot of Democrats, to pick one group, are not going to be able to show up at the polls and switch parties and vote Republican and switch back. So then, would they just stay out? And then think about the other parties. I know there's not very many Libertarians or Constitution parties out there, but also there's a lot of independents. Would they just not bother to show up if they can't cross over vote like that? That makes me wonder about the low voter turnout, but then also, why is it that we had such a shift in our legislative body, but also, and I'm still getting numbers from county races and city races from across Wyoming, but it looks like a lot of the old guard was pushed out, a lot of new faces brought in that are a lot more conservative. So if you take out the Democrat vote, the crossover Democrat vote, is that enough to influence what happens in the overall election? Getting rid of a lot of those old-time legacy names, the more moderate Republicans. Because, you know, if the Democrats are going to come in and vote for someone, they're going to vote for the more moderate Republican or even the more liberal Republican, as they might see it. They're not going to vote for the extreme conservative. So you see how that could affect our election results. Not many people show up. Those who do, for the Republican primary anyway, are Republicans. And the Republicans want a more conservative Republican Party, so that's what they vote for. Meantime, the Democrats are going to have to vote in the Democrat primary, whether they're interested in who's running or not, and if nobody's running in their district, then why show up at all? What's the point in showing up? They can't vote in the Democrat primary because no one's running in their district, and they can't vote in the Republican primary because they're a Democrat, so why show up at all? So as I'm looking at the numbers, I'm thinking that might be what happened here and why we had such a conservative shift. That's the theory that I'm working on right now. I'm going to ask a few other people if they've noticed the same thing, if they agree with me. If all goes well, our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, will come in with some more election numbers, probably about 8:36 this morning if he's able to do it. Meantime, we'll keep an eye on those fires and all that smoke out there for you, if your eyes are watering like mine. Coming up on some local news, after local news, update on the weather forecast, and you and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. It's a Thursday morning. It is an entirely different color sky out there. For those people who have breathing problems, careful today if you're living in one of those really smoky areas. We'll be in it for a while, but then that wind shifts. Hopefully that'll give us a break. So Wake Up Wyoming.
Sure, this show is sustainable. We sequester all gas emissions to one room. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, live on AM 1030 and FM 95.1, weekdays at 6.
The time, it's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, got a couple of notes here from some people that's really interesting. If you're just joining me, besides the smoke and fire out there, which I'll keep updating you on throughout the morning, and that's local fires in Wyoming due to lightning strikes, and yes, I-90 between Gillette and Buffalo is closed right now because of that. So, all right, that's what's going on with smoke and fire. I'll keep you up to date. So, why so low of a turnout in the Wyoming primary? It was very low. About 60% of the people actually showed up statewide. Ray, thanks for sending me this note. Ray's over in Green River. He says, I worked the polls in Green River in our precinct. We had 34% of registered voters turn out. That's really low. And it's a presidential election. I know we're not picking that now, but my theories are we didn't have a big controversial issue like Liz Cheney. That brought out a lot of people. But also, if we don't allow crossover voting like we did before, then why would the Democrats show up to vote in the Republican primary? There's very few Democrats. I pointed this out as we got toward primary election time, toward Tuesday. I was pointing out very few Democrats running for anything this time around. And I hardly find any Libertarians or Constitution Party out there, and independents are non-existent. So why would the Democrats show up? And they can't cross over vote. So then I take a look at how the Republican Party in the primary went far more conservative. And a lot of old guard moderates were thrown out. Oh, well, if we're leaving this up to actual Republicans to vote, and there's nobody else getting in and mucking up the Republican primary, then what are you going to wind up with? More of a conservative vote. It seems to me to be logical as I just think it through. All right, this is also Milo, who was in Fort Danger. He said, most people that I work with had no idea that it was primary voting. Man, did I raise my voice. You see, but Milo, it makes me feel good. See, I have that whole stay out the vote campaign. I don't want uninformed people showing up to vote. I'd rather they didn't. If they don't even know that the primary is happening, then how out of touch are they? You honestly don't know that the primary is Tuesday and you're supposed to show up and vote as an American. You're not paying. You don't see all the yard signs all over the place. You don't hear all the political commercials, and the billboards that are up all over the place. You don't see this. If you're on social media, you don't see all those ads popping up in front of you. Where are you that you don't know that this is going on? So for those people to not show up and vote, thank you. I appreciate your non-participation. Because they would have shown up and just guessed, and who knows what we would have gotten. Jim in Casper says, it might be different if we actually primary the presidential candidates instead of caucuses. Yeah? Yeah, that could make a big difference, too. I think this answers a lot of questions for me about why that not many people showed up. The number of people paying attention seems to be low. That's part of it. I think crossover voting also a big part of it. Not having a huge issue in the state of Wyoming to go vote for is another part of it. Would it have been different if here in Wyoming we had to pick a governor? Maybe that would have picked up the numbers quite a bit more. A lot of local races out there are really important, but people aren't paying attention to the local races. I think in general, and again, I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, so don't take this as gospel. I'm just thinking out loud. In general, politics has gotten so annoying that a lot of people have just checked out and are not paying attention to them. And I don't blame them. There's a lot that I decided over the years I'm not even going to pay attention to. Because it's just a bunch of loudmouth pundits. They're spinning whatever happens in the news. And it's not worth listening to. Name calling and so on. It has nothing to do with the real issues that are important to America, which is often why I find when a news reporter from one of the former news networks like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or whoever else, CBS, NBC, when they show up and these reporters put a microphone in the face of some average citizen and ask that citizen a question. And the citizen has no idea what they're talking about, has never heard about whatever the issue might be. I do think a lot of people over the past couple of years have just had enough and tuned out. And in some ways, I don't blame them for it. I understand. I'd rather they were more involved, but I can completely understand as well why they've just had enough and tuned out. It's not healthy for our country that they have, but I can still look at it and go, no, I get it. I'm really exhausted from all of this, too.
Woke Radio, WOKE, the shortwave radio station that identifies as 1,000-watt FM. Because, we are what we feel, not that we feel what we are.
Covering world-ending catastrophes for years to come. It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Find content, chat live, and listen on demand on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
6:28 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming, and I finally get to say, back we go to the icebox when Gambino is waiting by.
Glenn, I could taste the smoke in here.
Yes.
Inside.
That's what gets me is the inside the building. And we're supposed to have some pretty good air conditioning filters and so on in here. But, yeah, it's not just a matter of smell. It's the taste of that smoke. It's right here with us.
Yeah, there's big fire by Buffalo. Another one by Gillette.
Yep.
There was one the other way.
There's quite a few out there, yeah. So,
it was like I was just talking to you, like, whoa, yeah. This thing is like right around here.
Yeah, somewhere. It is. Yeah. So a lot of little a lot of little thunderstorms yesterday sparked a lot of little fires. Few of them grew up into some big fires, and that's just all over the place out there right now because of all of these little storms that didn't have a lot of rain in them but had quite a bit of lightning. So there's where we are now, a lot burning out there. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of good news with that.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Right now, a gentle breeze is blowing all of this from the northern part of Wyoming south. That's why we're in the thick of it. Late this morning or early in the afternoon, that wind completely shifts directions.
So we're going to get it again?
No. Well, we could, but
no.
That's good for the firefighters.
Yeah.
Because if it suddenly turns the exact opposite direction, a lot of that fire goes back to what stuff it already had burned. That helps the firefighters out quite a bit.
Very much so, yeah.
The bad news, we get more of those showers again today, And then on the weekend, the wind really starts to pick up coming from the west heading toward the east. And if the wind really picks up and there's still fires out there, you know what that does to the prairie.
Yeah, I flew in yesterday evening. It was fascinating to watch rain.
Yeah.
Like from that height, like right over Casper Mountain. I'm like, whoa, okay.
It's beautiful to watch, isn't
it? To watch, yes. Not to be in it, no.
Oh. Was it a bumpy ride?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I've had worse.
Yeah, okay. Well, glad you made it back.
All righty. NFL, the Denver Broncos have picked Bo Nix as their starting quarterback. He'd be the first rookie starting quarterback for the Broncos since John Elway back in 1983. Now, in the last preseason game, Nix was 8 of 9 with a touchdown in their 27-2 win over Green Bay. Also looked fairly sharp in their preseason game against Indianapolis. Remember, this guy was the number 12 pick in the draft. And since Super Bowl 50, the Broncos have had 13 different quarterbacks. The seems to never end. So maybe Bo Nix is the answer. The Broncos will host the Arizona Cardinals in a preseason game coming up on Sunday. High school tennis coming up tomorrow. Cheyenne South and Central will be at Natrona and Kelly Walsh and Casper. And in high school golf today, Lander has a tournament, Sheridan has a tournament, Pinedale has a tournament, and Wheatland has a tournament. There'll be a few more tournaments tomorrow added into that mix for tomorrow with high school golf. And in Major League Baseball, the woebegone Colorado Rockies are 47-80 after a 6-1 loss to the Washington Nationals. The Nats scored 4 runs in the second inning, and Rockies rookie pitcher Tanner Gordon gave up 5 runs and 8 hits. He is 0-5 on the year with an ERA of 7.55. And those two teams will wrap up that series later on today in Denver. That's it in sports for now.
So when I go back into Miss Mary's office over there and I throw a couple of baskets, right,
which is a luck shot, right?
Yes. Well, what I do is I take 2 basketballs, one in each hand, and I throw them both at the same time because there's 2 baskets. Mm-hmm. And my percentage of getting both at the same time is higher than the Rockies. Than the Rockies picture you just mentioned.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
So you can put that in perspective now. Yes. I mean, you're a amateur basketball player.
Yeah, I'm not even an amateur. I'm below that.
Yeah, playing in a machine that's in an office.
Yes.
And you're better than
a professional baseball pitcher.
Yeah. I'd have to really think about that, but that's the God's honest truth.
So this is why I say I would like to take one of our Wyoming baseball teams and and switch them with the Rockies. And I think that Denver fans would get a lot better results out of them.
Well, they'll get their money's worth if they even go.
Yeah.
I went to a game, not this last Saturday down there, but the Saturday before. According to the sign, they had 46,000 people there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you why. Free parking, almost free entry. The only thing they're paying for is the beer.
I think there were a lot of Braves fans. Atlanta was there,
right.
So they didn't get in for free. Matter of fact, they may have charged them double.
Well, but see, now this is where you get to watch your team. If they're not Denver, you get to watch your team win a game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're guaranteed to win.
Guaranteed. with $16 beer.
Yes, that's right. Why not? All right, welcome back, Frank.
Thank you.
Coming up on some local business we got to take care. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. I got some more on the smoke, but I'm getting more notes from people who have a bit of an insight as to why Wyoming had such an embarrassing low turnout for the primaries. I've got some theories about that. I was going to move on to a different topic, but this conversation's getting really interesting, so we'll pick it up again next hour. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Thursday, and I would say, I swear I could see the weekend from here, but it's so smoky, I don't think I can.
Today's show is sponsored by frog-flavored ice cream. Tastes like chicken, but it's frog.
That just sounds really gross. But all right, first off, a little bit of house cleaning from yesterday. I'd like to thank everybody who was helping me out. I get a note off the Wake Up Wyoming app that, hey, I-80 is closed. And then I start hearing, well, it's possibly because of a turned over truck and jet fuel. And that turned out to actually be the case. And that's why they closed down I-90, which by the end of the program yesterday, they were reopening I-90. This morning, we have a couple of other roads that are closed, and this time for actual fires. If you're between Buffalo and Gillette, closed. I-90 between Buffalo and Gillette is closed, and that's because of smoke and fires in the area. Now, if you wanted to get up to Montana, if your idea was, I'm going to get on Highway 59 and go up to Montana, you'll find it closed at some point. Same idea. If you are between Buffalo and Gillette and you want to get between one town and the next, here's an idea for you. Say you're in Gillette, you can go up past the airport up Highway 14, which will wrap around by Claremont and down, get on to 16 to Buffalo. Or if you want to head to Sheridan, you stay on 14. It eventually gets up to Sheridan there. But I-90 is closed right now, and so is 59 because of all those fires. I'll keep you up to date on that. And I'll have Don Day on at 7:45 to talk a little bit more about this. What started those fires was yesterday a lot of little thunderstorms all over the place. Now, that's a lot of lightning and very little rain. And there's why we have the fire and all these smokes. So I'll give you what I think, I have a theory, might be some good news. Right now, there's a very slight, gentle breeze from the north pushing all of that south, the smoke and the fire. Later on this morning or early afternoon, that wind is going to change directions and start heading north, if that forecast holds, and even pick up speed. If that happens, the way the forecast is showing, a lot of that fire is going to turn right back in on itself and try to go into areas it already burned, which will help the firefighters immensely. I'm hoping that happens. Either way, we're sort of in the thick of it. We will get some more rain like we did yesterday, which could actually even spark some more fires. There's some more bad news for you. We'll keep you up to date on that as the morning goes on. Don Day, again, he's on at 7:45, and his weather forecast has a lot to do with our smoke and fire forecast. So 7:45 this morning, stick with us for that. Now, I was going to go on to a different topic, but this has actually become a really interesting conversation this morning. So during the primary election here in Wyoming, first off, we had a shift more conservative, especially when you take a look at the Wyoming House and Senate. A lot of local races for, let's say, city council or county commission also went more conservative. They're also Republican, but more conservative Republican. The Wyoming Freedom Caucus did a good job in the House of Representatives. They increased their footprint quite a bit. And a lot of old legacy names in Wyoming politics, like our Speaker of the House in the Wyoming House of Representatives, who's been around for 24 years, is out, and some other big names in politics are gone. So why that shift to more conservative, you might wonder? Well, at the same time, this was some of the lowest voter turnout we've ever seen in Wyoming. I mean, I have to go back to 2016 to find voter turnout that's lower than this. Here's my working theory, and I'm going to read some comments that I'm getting off of this, but my working theory at the moment. We didn't have a big issue. We don't have a governor's race right now. We're not trying to get rid of Liz Cheney. Okay, but also crossover voting. The House and Senate and the governor signed a rule about crossover voting. So, sorry, in the primary, you got to stick with your own party. You can't jump to Republican and jump back. And I know a lot of people make the argument, but there's no one from my party running. It's only Republicans in my district. So that means the general election is the primary election. Yeah, okay, well, that's not the Republicans' fault. You got to vote in your own party. And because of that, a lot of Democrats just didn't show up. There weren't a lot of Democrats running across the state of Wyoming, and a lot of Democrats didn't show up because they can't cross over vote. And that same goes for independent voters, libertarians, and Republicans, which means we're left with Republicans. And if Republicans are only voting in the Republican primary, it might actually go more conservative, which it did. That's my working theory. Now, get a load of some of the notes I'm getting. 99-2B in Burns. Such a sexy name you picked for yourself there. He said, talked to a guy yesterday that had no idea Biden had dropped out and Kamala was running. See, the conversation has switched to people who aren't even paying attention. Think about that a minute. Here's someone who's not paying attention to the point that he had no idea that Biden had dropped out and Kamala was running. How much are you just really not paying attention? That all started with Milo in Fort Danger, who said, most of the people that I work with had no idea the primary, we were supposed to be voting in the primary. They didn't know what was happening. And my thought is, how do you not know what's happening? There's yard signs all over the place. There's billboards all over the place. Your television and radio are filled with commercials. If you're on any social media, there's ads all over the place. How do you not know? And then here's somebody who didn't even know that Biden had dropped out. These are people that are just not paying attention. Now, Paul and Casper said, I had 1,000 texts, especially from Reed Rasner. Living under a rock wouldn't have kept you from knowing about the primary. I'm thinking a lot of people just, and here's my guess and theory on this again, they're not paying attention because it's gotten so bad in politics right now, the way it's being presented especially. I can't even, think about what I do for a living, and I can't even turn on the television and watch some of this stuff. I walk by television, I don't care what network it is. Even Fox, I don't care. And I just keep on walking. I just don't care what these people have to say. It's gotten really bad, really annoying. And so I think a lot of people have just tuned out. In fact, even watching the Democrat convention, what little I've seen of it, I end up tuning out. I try to tune in because I want to be informed. I end up tuning out because they're not talking about any issues. Everything that they're talking about is all platitudes and insults. And they're not talking about any issues and what they plan to do to fix anything. And so why would I be engaged? I want to know, what is your plan exactly? Here are the problems that we're facing in America. What is your plan? I haven't heard any plans. Lots of platitudes, lots of nice words, lots of mean things being said. But nobody actually offering any kind of plan to fix anything. And when they do offer a plan, I'm sorry, you just want price controls? And we discussed why that's so bad. And so because of that, I do think a lot of people have just checked out. Now, not good for America on a lot of levels, because that just means that those people who are currently in charge can get away with anything. And most of the American people aren't listening. Don't even know that it's happening, are shocked to find out when something does come their way. What's going on? Hang on, what? That can be a dangerous thing when the American people just quit paying attention. And I do think that I think a couple of things in this, just dealing with Wyoming. A couple of things is, if we don't have any crossover voting going on, that means a lot of people aren't even going to bother to show up. What's the point? That's part of it. And I do think a lot of people are just not paying attention right now because this has gotten really bad, really annoying, and your news media is not helping. Your politicians are not helping. We're not really dealing with real issues right now that matter to people, and so they're not paying attention to it. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
And on the third day, God created the Remington bolt-action rifle so that man could fight the dinosaurs. Amen.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
7:21 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Just chatting with a friend of mine up in Gillette, DJ, who was saying that has not been good for them. They were ready to evacuate all night long. Didn't get the word to. Things have seemed to have calmed down a bit, wind-wise anyway, but there was a ranch nearby them that was real close call with the fires up there. So a lot of smoke, a lot of fires. I'll keep you up to date. And if you got information, because I'm watching on social media people posting pictures of the fire all over the place. Oh, a friend of mine, Jessica, if you're out there, morning. Ranger Jessica is a ranger that's up in the Buffalo area. And she was working the fire that's just southeast of Buffalo. And she said yesterday the wind just kept changing directions. No matter what they try to do to put it out. They were chasing the fire all over the place. So most of what she did was show up at places and asking them to evacuate because the fire was coming close to them. And there were quite a few evacuations. I-90 between Gillette and Buffalo is closed right now. And also I think it's 59 that goes north of Gillette up to Montana, closed right now. And that's just because of the smoke and fire in the area. So, you know the drill. We'll see. Don Day again, 7:45 to come on to talk about this. All right, I'm going to play something for you. Getting back to politics for a minute. Do you know who Jill Stein is? For those who don't know, there's been a show on public television for quite a while. Democracy Now! Is what they call it. And it's a very liberal opinion talk show. And she's been the host of it for a very long time. Very liberal woman. I mean, damn, really liberal. Well, okay, so she was being interviewed about Biden dropping out and just the decision to pick Kamala Harris rather than having the Democrat Party talk about who they would like to have. And she's not happy with this. Listen carefully to the words she's choosing because you would swear this was a conservative talking. But it's not. It's actually someone who has been, I think, one of the most liberal liberals in the history of liberal liberals.
Jill Stein, another question about the coronation of Kamala Harris.
Yes.
What was your reaction when you saw that they basically put her in for the nomination without any primary vote whatsoever? How did you react to that?
To me, it was like, well, this was kind of inevitable. The Joe Biden balloon was going to pop because they had circled the wagons around him. You know, he who has not been able to think clearly or, carry on a conversation or even read from a teleprompter. You know, this man was not fit to be president. He's not fit to be president right now. You don't want this guy woken up at 2 a.m., by the hotline and there's some emergency that has to be solved. Who's making the decisions here? It's not people who've been elected. It's the deep state. It is his staff, whoever. He shouldn't be in office, and he crashed and burned. Well, they're going to do the same thing with Kamala Harris because...
Okay, do you see what I'm saying here? Doesn't she sound like a conservative?
In action, and before that as well. She had to drop out of the primary in 2020 because there was no support for her whatsoever. She was going to have a really humiliating result in her own home state of California. So it's just a matter of time. That ship, too, is going to sink. So, the Democrats have just cooked their own goose here. The Democrats make all kinds of promises they don't keep. The Republicans don't even make those promises, except perhaps to their big donors. But the Democrats are making promises to everyday working people that they betray all the time. So people are really angry at them and are voting against the Democrats. Not because they necessarily love the other alternative, but because they're really pissed off at the Democrats. So we need an election system in which people can vote for what they want, not vote for some lesser evil or some desperation alternative. People need to be able to vote for who we are and what we need. We need jobs, we need health care, we need
You get the idea. That's one of the most liberal women in the history of liberal women's. And you hear what she's saying here. And it flat out admits that Kamala Harris was picked by the deep state, the people who were in the back rooms, and leaving out the voters and their choice, picking someone who wouldn't have even won her own state when she initially ran for president. And even flat out admitting that Biden is not fit to be president right now, which is part of the and they kept that from us. So even Democrats understand this. It's going to be really interesting to see. I know at the Democrat convention right now, everybody's there is carefully picked to be there. I do find it interesting every time a speaker gets up, everybody has the same signs. There's all the same signs to hold up saying all the same things. It's very scripted. So it's going to be interesting to me to see what exactly happens when we get into the real race here. Not exactly sure. And this is also why I say when I tune in to the Democrat convention to try to watch some of it, I don't last long because they're not really saying anything of substance at this point. Not a thing. It's a lot of name calling going on, a lot of finger pointing, mostly the name calling at Trump. And mostly they're just attacking him without exactly saying anything about what they'll do to fix it. And to say they have to fix something means they have to admit that it's been broken all this time. For example, to fix inflation means they have to admit we've had a problem with inflation. To fix immigration means they have to admit we have a problem with immigration. And the list goes on. And they don't want to have to admit to what we've been telling them all this time that these things are problems. So instead, they're just in attack mode right now. And I find it very difficult to listen to. So going back to people who don't vote, my sister just sent me a note. She's over in Lake Wales, Florida. I hope people who didn't vote know to stay out the vote. And I think primarily they did, Sister Dear, because the voter turnout in Wyoming for this past primary that we just had on Tuesday was the lowest it's been since 2016. And I think that might be part of just disengaged people. Now, I like this name. So we had 992 from Burns send me a note. And I kind of made fun of his name. People can pick a handle when they text me, whatever you want to call yourself. So he changed it to Oil Patch Kid. That I like. So Oil Patch Kid from Burns is sending us notes, which sounds a lot better than just 992. Although I would be curious to know what was 992 in reference to. You could either tell me or you can let me get all conspiratorial about it. I think conspiratorial sounds like more like fun. All right. So for those people who are wondering with the smoke and the fires, what's going on with that, I'll have you listen to Don Day at 7:45 if you'll hang with me for that. Because what started a lot of these fires, lightning, from a lot of little thunderstorms that were all over the place yesterday. And we're going to have a bit more of that today. Also, wind direction is a big deal on this thing, too. So Don Day's weather forecast has a lot to do with all the fires we have raging around us. And it had just cleared out, right? We had just had clear skies and things were not smelling like California. I mean, the air smelled like methamphetamine, pot, and hippies. Now, and homeless people, it smells like sagebrush is burning out there, which is making my eyes water. Coming up on some local news, after local news update on the weather forecast, you and I get back into it. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Wake Up Wyoming.
Listen to Glenn Woods anywhere you roam with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. We'll get with Don Day in just a bit and talk about some of the smoke and fires, what caused them and what might put them out. Real quick to Oil Patch Kid in Burns. He had named himself 992. He's texting me on the Wake Up Wyoming app, which you can do. Download the app for free at the App Store, hit the chat button, and send me text messages, and I answer back on and off the air. And 992 was not a particularly good name, so he renamed himself Oil Patch Kid, which I appreciate that. That sounds good. So now, what would my conspiracy theory be for why he named himself 992? See, I think he's actually a Nazi and he was angry at something. 9 is no, and 2 is just spitting. That's what I think was really going on. He was really mad. He was saying no, and then spitting. If you got a better story than that, Oil Patch Kid, I will go ahead and take it. Okay, so you're going to hate me for this. But then again, you'd want to share it with everybody that you know. Democrat women at a Democrat caucus decide to stand and sing the national anthem. Wait, it gets worse. Now they try to harmonize. And you're thinking it can't possibly get any worse. Some of them forget the words. Someone's way behind and someone's way ahead. Stick with the music on that, by the way. Someone was way ahead of the music at reciting the words, and then there was somebody else who was way behind trying to catch up. Couple of the ladies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ladies. Couple of the ladies were actually singing with the music. 1 or 2 of them forgot the words for a while and then had to catch back up again. So those are Democrat women, and I will promise you I will never play that again. Did you get a headache? Sorry. Let's see. Oil Patch Kid. Good Lord. Look up 992 Cat. 992 Cat. I had never heard of 992 Cat. Okay, let's see. 992 Cat. I have no idea what that is. Oh, that's a big tractor. That's like a huge Tonka toy. I see. Caterpillar 992. It's a huge wheel loader. That's good. That's one of those things where you need a big, really not, you don't climb up by a ladder. This thing is so big it has stairs to get up on. Okay. So he's saying, good Lord, look up 992 Cat. I'm sorry, I'm not that in. I liked Tonka toys when I was a kid. I really did. But after I was a kid, I didn't play around with Tonka toys anymore. You, however, Oil Patch Kid, continue playing with Tonka toys right into your adult years. I have never heard what 992 was before. But thank you for correcting me on that. All right, coming up, well, I said I was going to come up with a conspiracy theory. I didn't say it was going to be good. Coming up on Don Day with the weather forecast that I talk to him about every single day. And this one I think is particularly important because, again, a lot of us in Wyoming, especially on the eastern side, are dealing with some really thick smoke today. And this time, it does not smell like Canadian bacon, or it's not coming from California. So, in other words, it doesn't smell like hippies and homeless people. Instead, it actually smells like a Wyoming fire because it's that close. Now, what started that was a lot of little thunderstorms yesterday with bolts of lightning all over the place. The worst of it, and I'm looking it up right now, is up around the Buffalo and into the Campbell County area, where they've closed down some roads up there because of smoke and fire, and people have been evacuated. A lot of that smoke is still pushing down. That's not where there we go, I-90 between Gillette and Buffalo is still closed. And so is the highway north, which is 59, that goes from Gillette up into Montana. That's still closed as well. There's still fires all the way around as we get below Gillette into the right area. They're going to be east of KC, down toward the Casper area. There's some fires around there as well. And I looked at the story that I put up on the Wake Up Wyoming website this morning, shows you the cause of it, which is a lot of lightning strikes. And I do have a screenshot. There's a lightning strike tracker. And you can see how many lightning strikes we got yesterday that caused all of these little fires all over the place. And as dry as things are in those thunderstorms, were not very wet, then you can see what caused it all. Do we get more of that? Unfortunately, we have some more of those storms coming today. Don Day will explain next.
Rant alert to everyone telling me to go drink bleach. I'm not thirsty.
Want to talk to Glenn? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
7:45 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. So, Don, yesterday afternoon, I was looking at the sky and the radar and thinking, wow, there's a lot of little thunderstorms all over the place. And it didn't strike me, no pun intended, what kind of a negative impact that can have across the region.
Well, yeah, it did, yes. I mean, those were fire starters yesterday and over a large swath. Radar detection showed really the whole eastern side of Wyoming had those thunderstorms. And you noticed, as you mentioned, there were a lot of them. They weren't really big, but there were a lot of them. And with the very dry conditions, especially that are occurring in northeast and east central Wyoming right now, that just made it prime for fires to get started. We also had a pretty stout southwest wind yesterday, fanning the flames. And something to keep in mind, we need to rewind a little bit because 2023, we all remember how green and lush it was. A lot of those grasses and those plants that grew up last year, died like they go through their normal life cycle. So we built up a lot of fuel. out on those plains last year. So that's one negative. And we see this in California a lot. You have excessive moisture, fuel buildup, then you have a dry year afterwards, and that can be a real problem with fires.
Okay. Now, I do look at, there's a website you might be familiar with it called Windy that I just like. It shows me what the wind's going to be doing. And I think maybe a little bit of good news for later this afternoon is we have some winds that start to push up from the south, which would turn those fires right back in on themselves if that forecast holds with the wind. Having said that, though, it looks like, are we going to get more rain this afternoon?
Well, depending on where you are. Okay, so the monsoonal moisture is still very much going to be across the south and the southeast. It's not going to extend as far north today. It's going to be more in the southern and southeast counties. So those locations, Laramie, Cheyenne, Wheatland, the Torrington area, over to Rollins, that's where the thunderstorms are likely going to be today. You mentioned wind. Wind is going to pick up. It's not going to be as strong today, but it's going to pick up tomorrow and especially Saturday. So hopefully some progress can be made on the fire situation today, because I'll tell you, the weather situation for tomorrow and Saturday isn't great because of those winds picking up. And yes, if we'll have more showers and thunderstorms, we will, as we saw yesterday. It's only helpful when it rains. If it rains on the fires, they could be starting more. So that's something we don't necessarily want to see.
And it looks to me like most of the weekend wind is coming from more of a westerly direction moving east. So if there's still stuff burning out there, which I expect it would be, then that just pushes it toward Nebraska and South Dakota.
Well, yeah, the winds this weekend are mainly going to be from the west-southwest. And so, and gusty. Yeah. And so so today is an important day.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Don. Don Day with Mayweather. And now you know how all of that got started. Let's head over to the icebox where Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay. So, Frank, I got just the perfect story to welcome you back with.
I would need that after this entire lecture about how smoky and burning we are.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Someone in Cheyenne, Wyoming keeps deliberately arranging dead wild animals on an intersection.
Okay, the guy needs to be hauled in.
Yes.
To the institution. And get him off the street.
Yes. Cheyenne Animal Control said they responded 6 times in the past 4 months to an intersection, South Greeley Highway and East Nation Road, to deal with wildlife carcasses that looks like they have been arranged deliberately in some odd fashion. One incident involved raccoons and skunks.
Is this like an occult kind of thing?
I don't know. Either that or it's somebody who has just a really demented sense of humor, and I want to know where he's getting the dead animals
Where's he getting the skunks? Then they got to be able to find the guy. He smells like a skunk.
Yeah. Quote, this pattern has caught the attention of Cheyenne Animal Control and local resident. I bet it has.
Oh, yeah.
And if you know who's doing it or if you can spot who's doing it, could somebody please, I tell you what, Frank, it's easy today to set up cameras. Very easy. Hidden. Get some GoPros. Yeah. Something like that. You can even do stuff live. And I know it'll be a while, but just wait until this moron shows up again. And then my first question for him is going to be not why he's doing it. Where'd you get the animals?
The first question I would have asked was like, why? Yes. What are you doing?
Well, my last question would be, hell's wrong with you, boy?
Yeah.
I mean,
what are you thinking?
Yeah, exactly. What is going on? What is your major malfunction that you think that this is, funny? Acceptable, something like that?
Grotesque.
Okay.
And it's disturbing, really.
It does not help you expect this out of some smaller Wyoming towns, which we know have a lot of weird people.
Well, they have nothing better to do.
Exactly right. That is exactly why they do.
This person probably has something better to do, and he's still doing...
You would think, Cheyenne, get a job.
That's a good one. All right, in the NFL, the Denver Broncos have picked Bo Nix as their starting quarterback. He is the first rookie starting quarterback for the Broncos since John Elway back in 1983. Now, in the Broncos' last preseason game against Green Bay, Nix was really effective. He was 8 of 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown. And he also looked fairly sharp in their preseason game against Indianapolis. He was the number 12 pick in the draft. And remember, after the Broncos have won Super Bowl 50, now they've gone through 13 different quarterbacks since then. And the Broncos will host the Arizona Cardinals in a preseason game on Sunday. High school tennis tomorrow. Cheyenne South and Sheridan will be in Casper to meet Kelly Walsh and Natrona. In high school golf tournaments today, Lander, Sheridan, Pinedale, and Wheatland. And it'll be kind of an interesting deal if you got to go deal with smoke and rain and thunderstorms in some of those locales, and then a couple of other additions coming up for tomorrow. And in Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies lost to the Washington Nationals 6-1. The Nats scored 4 runs in the second inning. Rockies rookie starting pitcher Tanner Gordon, 5 earned runs, 8 hits. He's 0-5 on the year with an ERA of 7.55. And those two teams will wrap up today. The Rockies are 47-80, and the season cannot end soon enough for those guys. And that's it in sports.
Okay. So I've been listening to you and both David Settle. You're really getting into your busy season then, aren't you?
Right now. Oh, yeah. Here we go. There's a few high school stuff going on. Yeah. Next week, It's going to be full bore. And that's like ding, 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 the end of the summer.
Okay.
I was talking to somebody about this, and I've talked, a lot of folks. The summers have gone faster and faster and faster.
Okay.
And for a lot of these high school kids, I mean, they're not just mowing the lawn and just relaxing by the pool. They're going to camps. They have all these traveling teams, and it's like they really never get a long break.
Okay. You see, now when I was a kid, we had the family cabin in the Carolina Mountains. That was fun, but also we would do something. You know what pool hopping is?
Pool hopping,
yes.
No.
Okay. As a teenager on a tropical island, you get dressed up to look like a tourist, and you go to a local hotel or motel, and you just act like a tourist and use their pool.
Yeah.
And when they come around and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, are you guys staying here in the room?" Yes, we're in room 16.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
Yeah. And when they go check that out, that's your time to get the hell out of there. Yes.
And you were a serial pool hopper?
Exactly right, yeah. And when new kids would come on the island, we would introduce them to pool hopping immediately.
Oh.
So, see, my summers were long and lazy compared to these kids.
You were a hooligan.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. My sister just said, dead animal guy has to be from California. A Florida guy would have just eaten them. She's got a point. I don't know what skunk tastes like. Probably chicken. Let's wake up Wyoming. 8:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Thursday, and as I keep saying, I'd say I could see the weekend from here, but it's too smoky.
Today's show is sponsored by frog-flavored ice cream. Tastes like chicken, but it's frog.
And sounds like twice as disgusting. On the phone with me right now, been patiently waiting by Tony Locke. Congratulations on the big win in his primary, Tony.
Thank you, Glenn. And thank you so much for giving me just a couple minutes to be on your show this morning. Thank you.
So that race that you had, I think it was very unusual this time around in the state of Wyoming because we had a bit of a turnover in the House and Senate. Some things changed this time around, didn't it?
Yes, quite a few things changed. I think the races were very tough. There was a lot of the campaign was definitely a battle this year.
Okay. But you did well.
Yep. I think I did. And one thing I wanted to make sure I would do today is just put out a big shout out. I want to do express my deep gratitude to all of the support I had across Natrona County, all the people who supported me. And I wanted to definitely thank the people of House District 35 for giving me the honor and extending that trust to me to continue to support them and at least move forward to the general and hopefully support them in the next 2 years in Cheyenne. But I wanted to extend that thanks and that deep gratitude to all.
Well, it's going to be busy this next legislative session, so I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for calling in this morning.
Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.
You too. And we had a lot of, we got a lot going on this morning. Let me real quick, I'll touch on the smoke and fire. I just posted on to the Wake Up Wyoming Facebook page, but you'll see it in some other places as well. Someone who is down around the Natural Bridge area, which is as you get close to Douglas and so on. There's fire right out there near between, let's say, the interstate and where the Natural Bridge is. There's fire. So it's supposed to be a bit south of Natural Bridge from what I'm reading, if that's correct. I'm not sure of the exact location. I was watching video of it. So quite a bit of fire going on there. Most of the fire is up around Buffalo, Gillette, in that area and spreading. And I'm saying those areas because they close I-90 between Buffalo and Gillette and Highway 59 that goes up from Gillette to Montana. But in that area, it spreads out quite a bit. So if you're below Buffalo, quite a bit of fire out there too. All of the fires that are in other areas were because of lightning strikes yesterday. And it's just causing everybody's eyes to water. So we'll keep you up to date as more comes in. If you're on social media, you'll see pictures and video all over the place. This is some really smoky stuff. All right. Into the 8 o'clock hour. Let's open up the phones.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about, change the subject. It's all fine by me. I want to take a moment, just a moment, to go listen to our friend Greta Thunberg. As she screams at us from big screen TVs in the dance hall, angry face as she always is. How dare you? So the latest from Greta Thunberg and the cult of climate change is not good news for them, but good news for us. India accentuates coal reliance in their new economic policy brief. This is where, as much as here in places like Wyoming, because of this administration and the bureaucracy we have to deal with here in America, coal has been suffering for a few years. But in the rest of the world, they're using more of it. In fact, use of coal, gas, and oil is up worldwide, not down. India, China, to name a couple of countries, they're not the only one. African countries, same thing. The story says most discussions of India's annual budget are being dominated by the increased taxation of the middle class. But many media entities, both in India and the West, overlook the country's decision to increase its coal consumption. An economic survey released as a prelude to the financial budget often indicates, the story says, the country's future direction in various areas of government, including energy and environment. See, they realize in order to bring people out of poverty, one of the things that's needed is more energy. So this year's survey, like those in previous years, clearly indicates that the country will either reduce its consumption of coal, will neither reduce its consumption of coal or back away from its commitment to the economic development that is required for the country. They need plenty of energy. They're flat out saying it. Coal dominates India's energy landscape. It's about 55% of the nation's primary energy supply. In the power sector, coal's role is even more pronounced, with coal-fired plants generating about 70% of India's electricity. It's also a critical source of various manufacturing, including steel, iron, things like paper, cement. With the country's energy demands projected to double by 2047, the survey makes clear that coal will remain the backbone of India's energy mix for an extended period of time. Here's a quote. Despite being one of the fastest growing economic, let's call it economies in the world right now, India's annual per capita carbon emissions is only about 1/3 of the global average. So they're just getting started. And just getting started means they will be doing a lot more on a much bigger level, and they'll be doing it despite what the cult of climate change wants from them. So, sorry, Greta. Sorry it's just not going your way, but the world is using more than ever before and intending to increase it. Off to the phones I go. Hey, Jude.
Earlier when I got up before I had to do cat box patrol, that the Speaker of the House didn't win his re-election. I was glad to see that because a lot of good bills died because he wouldn't introduce them on the floor.
Right.
So maybe this time around we'll get something done with some property taxes, some of the subsidy issues on these wind towers and solar panels, and maybe even get some laws put into place to stop things like gravel pits being on the mountain and that. So I'm looking forward to this. I was glad to see that a lot of people did not get in, and I think you know who all those are. I won't kick a puppy while it's down, but I was a little bummed that Jeanette Ward didn't stay in. But, you win some, you lose some. All in all, I think it was a great election. Right. I know it was slow, but I think, when you were talking about it, Democrats not being able to cross over, I think we got an accurate thing going here now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's just my theory, but my theory is, folks, for those who didn't hear it, we had a very low turnout in this primary. And one of the reasons I think that that's happening is because, we've done something about crossover voting. So if the Democrats cannot cross over and vote in the Republican primaries and come back, that means we're going to wind up with more conservatives, not moderates.
Yeah, and the idea to me was, I thought it was a great idea. I don't know why Chuck or everybody was picking on Chuck. It's one of the best things we could have done for Wyoming because a lot of those crossover votes were putting people in office we didn't want.
Right. Okay.
And without that, we're getting, I think, a pretty good, accurate count.
Yeah.
Oh, Rose got like 1,063 votes.
Okay.
Not bad for a first time out.
No.
Oh.
And remember what I always tell people who are running for the first time. You're going to have to run 2, maybe 3 times before you understand how to run for office. It takes a while.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yesterday we spent all day picking up her signs.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And I mean all day picking up signs. She had about 50 of them out. We're going to finish that up this morning. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. I think I was real happy with how things came out. Granted, she didn't get her seat, but that's okay. Next time, we learn something and we move on.
All right. Thank you, Judy. Real quick, hey, Bert is in Cheyenne. Let's see. I'll get back to yours in just a moment, Bert. Let me see. Jeff is in Casper. Jeff says, Glenn, my wife wants to know what the awful noise is that you play before you announce open phones. Okay. Tell you what, Jeff, if she's around, I got a news and information break here. Get her by the radio, and I'll explain what that noise is coming up next. I'm surprised she doesn't know. In the state of Wyoming, there are highways that need your attention. You can adopt a highway.
Morty and I, we couldn't have a highway of our very own, so we adopted one.
Yes, make sure Wyoming highways stay clean and well-maintained. Adopt a highway today, like this couple did.
He's a lovely little 2-lane road. We hope he grows up someday to become an interstate.
Hope.
You asked for an expert. We didn't have the budget for that. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
8:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, so I got to answer this question. Hey, Jeff, did you get your wife by the radio? Okay. I think she deserves an explanation. So before I do open phones, people hear this. You can hear that pretty well, right? And one more time. Here it goes. Have you identified that yet? All right, here's the deal. Here's how this story goes. I'll do it real quick for those who are new to the show and don't know. So some years ago, I'm in Gillette, Wyoming. In downtown Gillette, there's this, it's still there, this really nice toy store with educational toys for kids. I love that. I love walking into that store and going and looking around. It's just wonderful inside. On one of the walls, though, they had a rubber chicken hanging there. Now, I don't know how a rubber chicken is an educational toy. And a friend of mine standing there at the time said, I don't think that's the question. The question is, how is it you, of all people, don't own a rubber chicken? And I thought, good point. So I bought the rubber chicken, and I named him Carl. Now, a lot of people send me videos of rubber chickens, the kind you squeeze and they make noise. Carl doesn't do that. He's the traditional rubber chicken, the old school kind. Now, Carl ended up becoming very important. I had a lady who was cutting my hair that she had an emotional support dog, cute little corgi, because she had emotional issues, from anxiety to depression to all sorts of things would happen. And rather than get on medication, when she was on medication, she pretty much couldn't function. So instead, she got an emotional support animal, and the animal was trained to recognize when she was having some kind of an episode. And it would just go love on her. And problem solved. She was in a better mood. No side effects. And so I began to really appreciate emotional support animals. A lot of people who served in our military have them now. You know this. They could use them. Then people started getting on airplanes, taking advantage of this. Emotional support snakes, emotional support turtles. One guy actually tried to bring an ostrich on an airplane. True story. And that got me bothered. I thought, we've got to make some, I'm not in favor of a lot of laws, but sometimes we need a rule. So I got online, and I actually had Carl, my rubber chicken, registered as my emotional support animal. I have the paperwork. My sister's still listening. He needs a yellow vest to go with this, like dogs have, or some kind of a vest saying emotional support animal. But then next time I traveled by airplane, I took pictures of myself with Carl on the airplane, and I sent it to members of Congress. This is actually my emotional support animal. Can you believe this? Isn't this stupid? Now, I don't know if Carl and I solved the problem, but a little while later, legislation was passed to fix that. So now you can't just name anything your emotional support animal. It actually has to be one, which I think is reasonable. If you see someone with an emotional support animal and have a vest on and all of that, it's the real deal. It's not someone saying, this is my emotional support ostrich, or whatever it might be. Because of that, people started giving me all sorts of rubber chickens. I have a whole row behind me of all sorts of different types of rubber chickens. Different colors, different sizes, ones that make noise. From a Disney movie, one of the comic relief characters is a chicken. This one is made out of cloth. It's mechanical inside, but it's cloth on the outside. And it's a crazy chicken that was meant for comic relief in the movie. That was a gift to me since I was getting a chicken collection. If I squeeze its wing, it sends off this noise. It does it twice. Hang on. So when you hear the start of my show, or the start, for that matter, of Open Phone, something like that, what you're hearing is that chicken. Okay? There's the whole story. So I hope, Jeff, that she was listening and got up to date on what the whole story is. That's how I wound up with that chicken noise that leads off the show. Yes, and Fire Pit Paul in Cheyenne says, Sherry bought the Screaming Rooster for your birthday. I do remember that. I do know that it was Sherry that did that. And it's still in the studio, and it still starts the show every single day. In fact, Paul, you'll have to tell me if Sherry does this. But for a while, Sherry had her alarm clock set to exactly 6:06 in the morning. And she would wake up to the sound of that chicken that I just played for you. That was a gift, that Sherry in Cheyenne, Wyoming gave me just to add to my chicken collection that is ever growing behind me. And I have quite a few. In fact, there is even someone gave me a taxidermied chicken. Yeah, I even have little miniature, tiny rubber chickens. If you haven't seen these, you can take them and put them on your finger and shoot them across the room. Pull them like a rubber band and shoot them across the room. So I have those in here, too. So there. Starting with a true story about a rubber chicken that I bought because, of course, I should have one, leading to him being my emotional support animal to make a point. And now everywhere I go, when I show up someplace for some event, people will ask where Carl is. And if somebody wants a picture with me, actually what they're asking for is a picture with Carl. They're more interested in getting a picture with Carl than with me, which I'm fine with. The fact that Carl has become more famous than me is okay. And to this day on social media, people send me all sorts of pictures and videos of rubber chickens because they know it's me and Carl all the way. By the way, Carl was in my oldest niece's wedding. She requested, my sister made a tuxedo for him. Okay. Carl has a pair of Bermuda shorts on right now because I went river rafting with him. My sister made those rubber shorts, those Bermuda shorts for the rubber chicken as well. So yeah, Carl pretty much goes everywhere I go. He is my emotional support animal, after all. I mean, actually legally certified. All right, we'll get back into it. News time coming up next. Local news update on the weather forecast. Open phones, 888-97-WOODS. That's 888-97-WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS.
It's time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off to Cheyenne, Wyoming we go. Our man in Cheyenne, Doug Randall, is waiting by. So I would hope that you caught up on your sleep after staying up almost all of primary night. Okay. Waiting for him there, and I don't see it. Got that one pushed over here, got these pushed, got that over there. That should be Doug right here, and I don't hear him. Okay, let me try that one more time over here, and that should be Doug. No. Okay, for some reason, I'm not hearing Doug, and I'm going to go ahead and send him a note. Hang on a second here. And that was a pretty good intro, too, wasn't it? Right? Okay, so let me see. Doug, there we go. And the note is, could not hear you, try again. Okay. Now, maybe he fell asleep on the phone. I don't know. We'll see if he messages me back. But he really did. He stayed up way late covering all the primary news, which is where I got a lot of my news from about what happened across the state and locally as well. And then he was going to be on yesterday to discuss the primary results, but he sent me a note saying, I got like 3 hours sleep. Oh, okay. Well, if you'd like to put that off and try again, please do. And so he went ahead and just went to bed. And so he was trying to call in just now so he can catch us up on some of the primary news. And here it is ringing again. Let's see. Doug, can you hear me this time?
I can hear you just fine. How are you doing this
Okay,
morning?
Very good. Did you catch up on your sleep?
I did. Yesterday
Okay.
I was a zombie. I was going at about 3 hours sleep, so
Yeah.
today's much better.
So if you spent most of the day in bed, what did your cat think about that?
He doesn't care as long as he gets fed.
That's okay. Yeah. You're the big feeding machine. I was saying to people, I'm going to, as we go through some of the numbers, I want to do that too, but I want to toss something your way. a theory of mine, and you've been around in Wyoming politics long enough to tell me whether I'm full of it or not. And usually you just tell me I'm full of it, which I understand.
Okay.
So let's see how this goes. So we had a pretty good footprint developed for the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, which means especially the House of Representatives shifted a bit more conservative, quite a bit more to the conservative side. I noticed
11 seats.
Yeah, and I noticed at the same time, though, across Wyoming, voter turnout was very low, which I think in part is because we may have solved the issue of crossover voting. If the Democrats cannot show up, crossover vote, and come back, and let's face it, that means they would have made the Republican vote more moderate, if anything. That means that we wound up with a more conservative vote because it was pretty much just Republicans voting in this one. And we also got rid of some people like the Speaker of the House that have been around for 24 years. I think it's because we got rid of a lot of that Democrat crossover that we wound up with this result. What do you think?
Well, I think it definitely did help the Freedom Caucus. I would push back a little bit on the idea that it pushed our turnout too low. There just aren't that many Democrats in Wyoming.
Yeah.
They can impact a close race for sure, but I think there were other factors in terms of the low turnout. I'm not sure exactly what they were. I think to some degree people are turned off by politics right now.
Yeah.
And may have also been the lack of any compelling statewide races. Everybody knew that John Barrasso and Harriet Hageman would cruise, and there weren't any other statewide races on the ballot. Of course, primary, there's no presidential race.
Right.
Those would be my theories. Nobody really knows for sure, though.
We're not really looking for a governor this time around, so that would affect it. And we're not trying to get rid of somebody fiery like a Liz Cheney, so that would affect it as well. So maybe it was just because it was not a lot going on from a Wyoming perspective. At the same time, though, let's go back and take a look at some of those numbers in the House and the Senate. And I noticed some other races across Wyoming. We lost some legacy names. There's some big people that have been around for a long time that aren't around anymore.
Absolutely, there are. Albert Summers, particularly 24 years in the legislature. Now, he did go over to run for the Senate, and he lost that seat. Part of his problem in that race was that the Senate district's a bit larger. He didn't do well in the southern part of that district, which was not his home base in the legislature as a representative. That may have had something to do with it, but he did lose, and he'd been there 24 years. Here in Laramie County, Dan Zwanitzer in the legislature since 2005, held a couple of committee chairs over the years, pretty influential. He lost. Not quite as long term, but also here in Laramie County, Bill Henderson, he'd been in 8 years. He lost. There was definitely an anti-incumbent mood in the legislature. I think there's no doubt about it. Or legislative voting. I think there's no doubt.
I'm still really disappointed that Cheyenne doesn't wind up with an artificial intelligence for mayor. I just,
Yeah, Vic didn't pull too many votes.
No, now that was my question, because according to what I understand from the Clerken area, they got rid of the artificial intelligence, but Vic had to, the guy who put the artificial intelligence in, he had to run as himself, basically, which, of course, he wasn't going to do that. How many votes did he get?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but he didn't get very many. He was way down. Basically, in the mayoral race here, it was the incumbent Patrick Collins really cleaning up. Rick Coppinger, who lost to him in the general election in 2000, was the only challenger who drew a viable number of votes. Everybody else was way down.
Okay, that was my next question there. We take a look at let's just focus on Laramie for just a moment, Laramie County. So we have, of course, the county commission, and then, of course, you have what's happening in your city hall, and I didn't see, am I wrong, much of a turnover there. It seems like pretty much the same people that you had last time.
Absolutely correct. Now, in Ward 2, Brian Cook did not run again, and so obviously he won't be back. Other than that, the incumbents, as they usually do in Cheyenne City Council elections, did quite well. Ward 3 incumbent Richard Johnson was a little bit behind Mark Moody. That doesn't matter that much because there are only 3 candidates in that race, and all 3 advanced to the general election. It might be a gauge that maybe Richard needs to work a little harder, and might be vulnerable to an upset, but he's still in the race. So.
And I did also let's go over to the Senate real quick, just up the road from you is the Capitol. There's the Senate. And a fiery figure for quite some time was Anthony Bouchard, who decided not to run again this time. Quite a few people stepped into that race. It got busy.
Yes, 6 people jumped in. Attorney Darren Smith did win by a fairly comfortable margin. He was the only Wyoming legislative candidate endorsed by former President Trump. I'm not sure why the former president took a particular interest in that race, but it may have proved decisive. Darren Smith was also endorsed by the former senator there, Anthony Bouchard. And he finished comfortably ahead. Taft Love was second, but it was not all that close. 6-person race, pretty competitive, but in the end, Darren Smith wins fairly handily.
And speaking of Trump endorsement, I did notice that there were 2 Republicans running against Senator Barrasso, and both of them said that they had the endorsement of Donald Trump.
Yeah, and they didn't.
No.
Reed Rasner ran an energetic campaign. I mean, he worked hard.
Yeah.
A lot of Republicans felt he ran a somewhat unethical campaign. He did have a habit of running photos with Harriet Hageman, who did not endorse him, and some other political figures. A lot of people felt that he was sort of implying endorsements he didn't receive. He did work hard. He beat the Bushes around the state. He was out there hustling. In the end, it didn't help him much at all.
No, okay. And one last one. This was a controversial thing, but there were some people across Wyoming that got some cards in the mail, and it stirred up a controversy because apparently the information on those cards about the people they were opposing was inaccurate information. In fact, some people might be able to sue because of what was on those cards. I thought it really was inflammatory.
Well, it was highly inaccurate. I'll give you maybe the primary example. Some of the cards accused their opponents of, obviously incumbents, of voting to remove President Trump from office. No such vote was ever held in the legislature. That's bogus. They tried to justify it by saying they voted against filing a lawsuit. Well, that's not exactly the same thing as saying you voted to remove the former president from office. I don't know. I don't think the legislature could do that if they wanted to.
Right.
And in any case, no such vote was held. That was totally inaccurate.
All right. Even though it had a much lower turnout, from the last number I saw, haven't seen a turnout like that since like 2016. Still, though, this was interesting, Doug. A lot of if you're a political nerd like we are, a lot of interesting things happened, I thought.
It was the most anti-incumbent Wyoming primary season for legislative candidates that I can remember in my time covering Wyoming politics, which that goes back 30 years.
Yeah.
That didn't extend so much to some of the local races here in Laramie County. Incumbents, again, on the city council did pretty well, and there were no incumbents in the county commission race, so there was no way to gauge that. But certainly in terms of the legislature, there was an anti-incumbent mood. A lot of familiar faces won't be back. A couple of other notable people who won't be back, Clark Stith in Rock Springs, who'd been in the legislature quite some time, I believe something like 15 years, pretty influential representative. He lost. We mentioned that Albert Summers lost. We had a couple of long-term representatives from here in Laramie County that lost. It was not a good time to be an incumbent. Now, we did have some incumbents who pulled through. Landon Brown pulled through by 17 votes. He did retain his seat, and he was behind most of the night. The mail-in votes were just enough to put him over the top. Bob Nicholas had a spirited battle with Kathy Russell. There were some accusations of some, shall we say, inaccurate statements there. Bob Nicholas, however, did survive by a fairly comfortable margin in that race. So it was a mixed bag, but overall incumbents did have a hard time.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Go back to bed.
You bet.
All right, wake up, boy.
Wake up, Wyoming, with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
Coming up on 8:51, off we go to the Icebox to talk to Frank Gambino. So I went long with Doug, our newsman. So, Frank, go with sports.
In the NFL, the Denver Broncos have named Bo Nix their starting quarterback. He's the first rookie starting quarterback for the Broncos since John Elway back in 1983. He was 8 for 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown in their 27-2 preseason win over Green Bay. Also played a sharp game against Indianapolis. He's the number 12 pick in the draft. And since Super Bowl 50, which the Broncos won, this will be their 13th different quarterback. 13. They will host Arizona on Sunday in a preseason game. High school tennis tomorrow. Cheyenne South and Sheridan will be in Casper to meet Kelly Walsh in the Trona. In golf, Lander, Sheridan, Pinedale, and Wheatland will have tournaments today and tomorrow. There'll be some additions tomorrow as well. And in the world of Major League Baseball, the Washington Nationals over the Colorado Rockies 6-1. The Nats won this game really with 4 runs in the second inning. Rookie pitcher Tanner Gordon gave up 5 earned runs and 8 hits. He is 0-5 on the year with an ERA of an astronomical 7.55. And the Rockies are 47-80. And they'll wrap up that series today at Coors Field in Denver. And that's it in sports.
Okay, so
but it's a fast day.
It is, yeah. Okay, I mean you have a lot going on.
I'm going to try to run to Wheatland and see some high school golf.
If you can see your way there.
If I can see my way there.
Yeah.
Like the road was closed yesterday.
Yeah. Well, no, it ought to be. Yeah, you'll do fine. Just drive slow. I mean, I do know I have a video here. If you head down to Natural Bridge,
okay,
yeah, it's there's fire around Natural Bridge area.
Okay, I'm on it.
So yeah, just be very careful because I know that's going to get thick in some areas, and so good luck. Drive careful.
All right.
Thank you, Frank Campbell. Come up on some local business we have to take care of. News time after that. Oh, we get into the 9 o'clock hour. And it's going to be open phones all the way. I got some house cleaning items to do, but I will update you on the smoke and fires as we go. By the way, if you're out there and you're dealing with some of that, smoke and fire, 888-97 was the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can go ahead and interrupt me and just tell me what you're doing. Because I know quite a few people not only are seeing the fires, I'm getting pictures and video from all over the place. I mean, you are dealing with it. Personally, some people have been evacuated too. So if you've been through that and you're dealing with it, please call the show. Would love to hear your experience, what's going on. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Store.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It is a Thursday, and no, I cannot see the weekend from here. It's too smoky.
Today's show is sponsored by pre-chewed bubble gum, scraped fresh from under high school desks. Yum, yum.
Okay. Sounds... Well, somebody else enjoyed it before, so you should too.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave. Just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Now, of course, you can call and interrupt me at 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. And I did mention before, and I mean this, if you're someone who's out there dealing with some of the smoke, or even better yet, the fire, 888-97-WOODS is the phone number. Or you can text me if you have the Wake Up Wyoming app, which is free at your app store. You can just hit the chat option and just send me a text message and tell me all about it. I am looking at fires yesterday. I looked up in the sky in the middle of the day and went, wow, look at all those little thunderstorms. I looked at the radar. Wow, little thunderstorms all over the place. What was really entering my mind at the time was all of those little thunderstorms don't come with a lot of rain, but they come with a lot of lightning. And because of that, now there are fires that are up there, let me see, around the Grand Tetons, in that area, around Yellowstone there, north of Worland, sort of in the Guernsey area, there's a fire. But it's mostly on the east side of the Bighorns and east side of the Laramie Range, which you'll see most of the fires. Now, the biggest one that's spread out quite a bit, if you're looking at Buffalo, Wyoming, and head down a little bit to the southeast, this is called the House Draw Fire, and it has spread out quite a bit. That's one of the big ones. That's where a lot of the smoke is coming from. Then there's fires up around Gillette. They're having a bit of a problem. And let me see. If I go over to, let's say KC, and we'll go east of there. 1, 2, 3 fires in that area. Casper, you've got a few to the east of you. And Douglas, you have some to the west of you, sort of in between. And then if I go to Glendo and around Guernsey, like you guys need it anymore, Shiprock Fire, Winners Hill Fire, Cedar Top Fire, Webb Canyon Fire. So that's what's going. That's why there's just so much smoke. Now, one thing I'm going to do before I get on to other news. Oh, and by the way, still closed, I-90 between Buffalo and Gillette. Still closed. And if you want to go on Highway 59 up into Montana, no, you can't do that right now. So those are the areas that are closed. Now, the wind, I'm zooming in here. There's a website and app that I use called Windy. And it really does gives a visual on what the wind is doing, plus numbers. There's really not a lot of wind out there right now, not much. So most of the smoke you're experiencing is just sitting where you are. Not a lot of wind moving anywhere. Now, that can be good for the firefighters. Now, let me go ahead and advance what their prediction is. As we start getting into, let's say, 11, 12 o'clock, that's when wind starts coming from the southeast and moving up toward the northwest. And if anything, that can help them even move into later in the afternoon. It picks up even more. That could actually help firefighters because that can take the fires and push them right back to where they started from. And if that's the case, you can imagine that helps firefighters a lot because they run out of fuel. They've already burned all of that off. So that's what I have right now. If I get any more information, I'll let you know. And you can also jump in with whatever you have, especially if you're out there experiencing this. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. All right. Some house cleaning items I wanted to get to. One, this was sent to me. And I think this speaks well. Sometimes memes say it all. This is a reality check. Pornography isn't real sex. The news isn't real facts. Red Bull isn't real energy. Alcohol isn't real courage. Video games aren't real life. Gambling isn't real investing. Caffeine isn't real adrenaline. Social media isn't really social. Degrees are not real knowledge. I agree with all of that, especially when it gets to the degrees, because a degree points you in the right direction. And then you got to go out and actually live and experience life, which gets you real knowledge, which is a completely different thing. Let's see. Another one I wanted to get to real quick. I'm just going to put two together for you, and I'll let your imagination build on this today. These are two headlines, all right? We're going to go to California for this. In California, home prices are driving people out. And it's a whole story of, it doesn't matter if they're middle class or rich or it doesn't matter, poor people, it doesn't matter. Home prices are so outrageous, people are leaving California for other reasons. But people are leaving California because they just can't afford homes there. Doesn't matter how much money they're making. They can't afford it, so they leave. The second headline, California offers free houses for illegal aliens and homeless people. California Senate Appropriations Committee advanced a bill to allow illegal aliens to make use of the state's zero-down, no-payment home loan program. An expansion of the legislators said it would be it would cost a lot. And by the way, they're massively in debt in California. They don't have the money for this. Quote, the social and economic benefits of home ownership should be available to everyone, such as California Dream for All programs should be available to all, said the bill's author. When undocumented individuals, illegal aliens, are excluded from such programs, they miss out on critical methods for securing financial security. That's the bill. Meantime, let's go back to the first story that I had for you. It says, the same economic issues that's prompting Lena Nuez to consider moving away from Orange County because she just can't afford to live there. Housing prices, she says, they're just crazy. I mean, it's crazy good if you own one and crazy bad if you're trying to buy one. In fact, some people who own one can't afford to keep up with even things like insurance and taxes on that home, but okay. So half of all county residents, 51% actually, are either currently thinking of moving or are already trying to figure out how to do so because they can't afford to live there. In the meantime, people who've entered the country illegally, the legislator, which is broke and doesn't have the money to do this, wants to find a way to pay for homes for people that are entering this country illegally. I don't think that bill goes anywhere. I think it dies. But there's people in the California legislature that are thinking about it.
Is your life boring? Are you too young for a midlife crisis but tired of waiting for something to trigger an existential crisis? Why not try generalized anxiety disorder? Make every day a crisis.
Yep, there you have it. A new level of crazy. And you heard it here first. This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
9:21's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 888-97 Woods the phone number. 888-97-WOODS. Here is the newest sponsor for this program here. This is Cullen Crappy Mobile Homes.
Hi, I'm Robert Lee. I own Coleman Liquidation. I sell mobile homes. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to tell it just like it is. These are mobile homes, not mansions. They come in two pieces. If that's what you're looking for, that's what I got. They're used. Some of them have stains. We cover that up. She decorates them. She sells them. These guys help me move. Bouncer in Birmingham hit me in the face with a crescent wrench 5 times. And my wife's boyfriend broke my jaw with a fence post. So if you don't buy a trailer from me, it ain't going to hurt my feelings. So come on down to Coleman Liquidation and get yourself a home. Or don't. I don't care.
That's just the quality sponsors we have in this program over here. Okay, I wanted you to hear something. I think this is really clever. This gentleman decides to perfectly illustrate in real life the hypocrisy of the Democrat convention and Democrats in general. So what he does is he goes and gets a guy who is an illegal immigrant who is in this country, and he convinces the guy, let's go inside to the Democrat convention where you can meet the people in person that are just allowing folks like you to enter the country. Nobody there at the border to stop them. They can just walk right in. Even if they are picked up by the police, hey, they're let go within a couple of hours. So how would you like to go thank the people responsible for that? Well, let's go inside the Democrat convention. Do you think they will let this illegal immigrant in.
Hey, Steve Cortez here on the west side of Chicago, Democratic National Convention at United Center. The Democrats, of course, want open borders and want an endless stream of illegal migrants pouring into the United States. This is my new acquaintance, Edwin. Edwin is from Venezuela. And we're going to take Edwin into the DNC so that he can meet the Democrats who want open borders. He should meet his new friends, hear the speakers, and learn about the Democratic Party. So, Edwin, let's head in, shall we? This is Edwin from Venezuela. Migrant, invited in by the Democrat Party. He'd like to come into the Democrat Convention.
Yep, you have to go to Jackson.
Yep. Wait, you mean he needs credentials and permission to come in?
Yes.
To get past the wall?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a border wall in a way, huh?
Yeah. You have to have ID, credentials. You can come
to come to the United States?
No.
Not to come to the United States. Okay, but to come to the Democrat Convention. Okay. You believe in security. You believe in securing a boundary. Edwin can't come in. I commend you on guarding this border. You're doing it very effectively, folks. We would like to get some credentials for Edwin. Come on, Edwin. Edwin is from Venezuela?
Has anyone filled out an application for him?
So you have to, there's a process in the application. He didn't have that at the border. Just to be clear, we have been ejected from the DNC credentialing office because we're not permitted to be here. We don't have permission. We didn't go through the application process. It seems like the United States would use similar rules about crossing the U.S. border. DNC doesn't believe in that, but they do believe in it for their own convention.
So there you go. I've talked about this before. In fact, many times you've heard me say that I don't think the Democrats would want an open border. In fact, if the people crossing the border were voting Republican, they would want a border wall. And they'd be building one right now. So I've talked about that before, and the fact that if you want to go to the Democrat convention, you have to have credentials and ID in order to get in. You cannot just walk in to the DNC convention. They have actually a huge gate around the whole facility there and guards everywhere. I remember during the whole, 2020 riot thing, what was it? There were several groups, Antifa groups, that tried to set up their own little country in the middle of a downtown area. And they right away started putting up walls and started putting security there to check people's ID coming in and out. But they couldn't understand why we'd want to secure our southern border. Now, having said that, here's a headline for you. DNC platform rolls out plan to legalize all illegal aliens. Democrat Party 2024 platform endorses a bill that would create a pathway for illegal immigrants to become lawful prospective immigrants who would be issued IDs, social security numbers, and be able to vote. And for those who have been looking at this thinking, well, aren't they just looking for more voters? I think that's more evidence that they are just looking for more voters. Meantime, headline, 24 states call on the Supreme Court to ensure that non-citizens don't vote in the federal election. Now, there are some cities around America that allow people who are in this country illegally to vote in local elections. And they say, but these people are not allowed to vote in the federal elections. Just in the local city elections, that's it. Or maybe the state elections. But once you hand somebody a ballot, who's to say the ballot? I mean, I would think that the ballot, you go ahead and start marking it, and it would just continue on down to the federal elections, right? So they could easily vote in the federal elections. All right. A coalition of 24 states have called on U.S. Supreme Court to ensure non-citizens don't vote in federal elections in accordance with federal law. They filed a brief with a court in Arizona, a law requiring proof of citizenship in order to vote. The coalition asked the Supreme Court to use emergency stay of a federal district court injunction against the law. The coalition also asked the court to hear the case of the Republican National Committee, Mia Voda, and confirm that the states have the right to govern their elections, including requiring voters to show proof of citizenship. So Arizona House Speaker and Senate President and the Republican National Committee have asked the court to allow Arizona to enforce the 2022 law while it is still being litigated. Let me see. Many states require, and I'm just trying to find out who all, I'm going to skim down to the bottom of this here. Okay. Sometimes it mentions what are all of the states involved in this. Here we go. West Virginia. Wyoming's not involved. The states include, well, I would like us to be here. I'll get a hold of Secretary of State Chuck Ray and say, can we get in on this? Let me see. Coalition of states include Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, Virginia, and West Virginia. I just didn't see Wyoming anywhere in there. Oh, Bunny in Cheyenne, aloha, howdy, Glenn, no breathing allowed. I agree. I'm sitting in a studio with very thick walls around me, Bunny, but every time that air conditioner kicks in, my eyes start to water. So the only way to get out of this is head way south. That's about the only thing I can think of. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. That's going to be news time after news time. Update on the weather forecast. You and I get into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. We are an open phone, so we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, not just what I'm going on about, but also anyone out there who is experiencing the smoke and especially the fire. Love to hear from you. 888-97 Woods. That's 888-97-WOODS. Wake Up Wyoming.
Sure, this show is sustainable. We sequester all gas emissions to one room. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, live on AM 1030 and FM 95.1, weekdays at 6.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. I just sent a note to a friend of mine who runs a cigar shop in Casper, Wyoming, which is, he has a nice, very nice lounge where people will buy cigars from him. They can go sit in these really big, comfortable chairs in his lounge and smoke cigars. You can imagine get enough guys in there, and gals, doing that. How smoky that room can get. So I just sent him a note. I don't want to hear anyone in your cigar lounge complaining about the smoke. Nobody. Now, this one, Jonesy, I got to give you credit for this. Jonesy just sent me this note, a text over the Wake Up Wyoming app. And I think you've inspired me to do this. I will do this. He said, good morning, Glenn. I wonder if you have a similar skit about a Republican that whines about high taxes and government overreach and then votes for Republicans who increase taxes and create bigger government. And that would be absolutely true. I mean, so I should, and I think I will, create some kind of a skit like that, because even when it comes to Republican, I meet people all the time. I mean, name any kind of walk of life. I meet any kind of Republican you can imagine who talk about fiscal conservatism and the national debt. And yet, if you try to turn off that tap of money that's rolling your way from the federal government, they'll get mad. So in other words, the level of hypocrisy. Talk about not putting the money where your mouth is. What they should do is turn down that money. And just say, I'm not going to accept the subsidies, and especially when it comes to their business, but also when it comes to their personal lives. But there's a lot of people in Wyoming, and I even get mad at the Wyoming legislators over this. They talk about big government overreach, and then they talk about national debt, and yet our Wyoming legislators go for grants like you wouldn't believe. Well, even in county and city government, they love that grant money from the federal government. Well, if you really want smaller government, you want to balance the budget and et cetera, quit accepting that money. Mark wants to talk about election integrity. Morning, Mark. Hang on a second, Mark. Okay, try again. Maybe I can hear you now.
Hey, can you hear me now?
I got you. Go for it.
Excellent. So does it make sense for someone on the ballot to count votes?
I would think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a law against it.
Okay.
It's 22-9.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. You mean someone that's running for office, like a candidate that's running for office? Okay, yeah. They shouldn't be counting votes.
Yeah.
You're correct. Yeah, okay.
So if you're a candidate, except for a precinct person,
right?
Right.
Right.
So, but if you're running for city council, like Sharon Cumbie, you should not be in election year.
Okay.
And she was. Oh,
right.
And surprise, she got more votes than anyone else running for city council.
Okay.
It's just here in Albany County, I fought for only the people on our list be election judges. That didn't happen. I am worn out from fighting with people with power, and we'll just go see what other people think about this.
Okay.
Like a shot.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
for letting me blow off some steam, because it was building up pretty bad.
Well, I've told you before, the show is therapy, so.
It is. Have a blessed day, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, by the way, for those people, again, who might be new to the program, let me explain it to you. This is the radio studio, as you know, that I'm sitting in, which means the walls are padded. All right. And I'm in here by myself. And then I get phone calls like that. So let me define my job. I sit in a padded room and I talk to myself. And you callers are the voices in my head. So I call this show therapy, because it gives you a chance to call in and just blow off some steam and get out of your system. And sometimes I agree with what people are saying, sometimes I don't, but either way, I just let them go ahead and blow off the steam anyway, let them talk. That's part of what the program is about. Now, I will give you open phones at some point every single day of the week. You're definitely going to get open phones. It's going to happen. On Friday's show, it's the entire program. Now, we just had a really busy week for a lot of reasons. Not just the primary election coming up, and that happened, and the results of the election as well, but also things like, for those who didn't hear on I-80 yesterday, a tanker truck tipped over and it was jet fuel all over the highway. Shut down I-80 for a good part of the morning. This morning, it's fires because of a whole host of lightning strikes yesterday. Started fires all over the place, and some of them pretty big. So that's causing not just a lot of damage. There's people who've had to flee their homes in some areas, and the smoke is just everywhere, especially on the eastern side of Wyoming. Top to bottom of Wyoming, people are in thick smoke and really not feeling well. I've talked to several people who told me that they're just starting to not feel really good just because of all the smoke. I would say do the best you can just to stay inside. I know that's not perfect, but it helps a little bit. And we'll keep you up to date on what's going. Tomorrow's program, we'll do it all over again. And whatever I have lined up for you, it'll be open phones the entire way. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Glenn Woods. He talks to you, not at you. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is Wake Up Wyoming on K2 Radio.
Coming up on 9:48, it's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank, I came across, quite accidentally, a list of fun things to do in Wyoming, ?
Oh, there are fun things to do.
Well, this is what the list says.
Okay.
1, admire the road work.
Well, yeah, that's the orange barrel obstacle course that happens every year.
Yeah. Okay. Hit suicidal deer. I don't think you have a choice there.
No, because they usually hit you.
Yes. In fact, one time I had to get an insurance company. They were very good to me about it. I had to file a claim because a deer hit me. And I made sure when I wrote up the claim, I did not hit the deer. The deer hit me.
That's happened to me in the back door of my car.
Yeah.
And then I went to the insurance company. I go, well, where did this happen? And I go, right across the street from your office.
Oh, well.
Oh, okay. We've seen the deer out here before. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, they know the one.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, go to Walmart.
You know, it's like going to the zoo.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can just go ahead and take a look. I don't know. Are you going there to browse, or are you going there to people watch?
Well, there's some unusual species in there.
There are, yes.
But then again, you got to eat.
Yes. Drive around for fun.
Not at $3 a gallon.
No. But, I mean, have you ever done that? You found yourself so bored you just started driving?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I would find somewhere to go and not just randomly drive around the block 7 times.
Yes. I agree. Let me see. This one, it depends on what your mood is. It says 1 finger wave at people.
Which finger are we talking about?
Depends on your mood.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there's it's not like you're going to, you can give them the thumbs up.
Sure.
Or a thumbs down.
Okay.
Sure. And then the Yankee flipper.
Okay. I advise against this next one. Run through a field.
To do what are you running away from?
I don't know. And there's snakes in the field.
I'm not going there.
I'm not going into the field. So, okay. No. And this one, I think we've all done, experience all 4 seasons in one day.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
90 to 50, back to 80, then over to 70, and then rain and wind.
And this is where, with all due respect to the people that I know in Gillette, Wyoming, because I know a lot of really good people up in Gillette. When I was living up there, at one point, I had gotten so bored, I found myself browsing a grocery store.
No, you go to by Donkey Creek and look at all the train engines.
Yeah, I had done that. Yeah, I was just browsing. If you find yourself in a grocery store browsing out of boredom,
you need a life?
Yeah, it's time to leave and go somewhere, live somewhere else that has more interesting stuff. That's why I suggested that Gillette get off of there. So when you drive in Gillette, you see that sign, Gillette Energy Capital?
Yeah.
I suggested to the mayor at the time, Gillette, 2 hours from fun.
There's got to be something.
Within 2 hours, yes. Head 2 hours in any direction, and you're having a great time. There's just nothing to do in Gillette.
But not in Campbell County. All right, and then in the National Football League, the Denver Broncos have decided on Bo Nix as their starting quarterback. He will be the first rookie starting quarterback the Broncos have had since John Elway. Back in 1983, Nix was 8 of 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown in their preseason win over Green Bay 27-2, and also played a pretty sharp game versus Indianapolis in the preseason. He was the number 12 pick overall, and there were like 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12. And for the Broncos, since Super Bowl 50, which they won, they have gone through 13 different quarterbacks and haven't made the playoffs since. And they will host the Arizona Cardinals in a preseason game on Sunday. Tennis at the high school level tomorrow, Cheyenne South and Sheridan at Kelly Walsh and Natrona. So that will be tomorrow. And golf today, Lander has a tournament. Sheridan, let's see if their tournament is still going on with all the smoke up there. Pinedale has a tournament, and so does Wheatland. There'll be a couple additions for tomorrow. And in Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies will take on the Washington Nationals today to wrap up that series in Denver. The Nats beat the Rocks 6-1 yesterday as the Nationals had 4 runs in the second inning. And Rockies starting pitcher and rookie pitcher Tanner Gordon's really had a rude awakening to the major leagues. He gave up 5 runs, 8 hits, and he's 0-5 on the year with an ERA of 7.5. Rockies are 47-80. They're terrible, and the season can't end quick enough. So they'll play again and see how many people they'll go and drink $15 beers.
I actually was thinking earlier today about game called on account of smoke.
It wouldn't surprise me in some places.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, probably more at the high school level.
Sure.
If their breathing quality, I mean, they're just not going to go out there. I mean,
right.
And then I don't know what these numbers are, for air quality thing.
Yeah.
Like Casper was like 186.
Oh.
Today, and like Laramie is 36.
Well, let me give you one here. I'll call it up real quick. A friend of mine, he's in Casper, Wyoming, and he has one of those Google devices, the screens that sits by his couch.
Right.
Okay. And it pops up with a warning: air quality, very unhealthy.
No.
Yes, and that's just, how do you define that? But very unhealthy. And he's sitting inside with the air conditioner running and saying, "Oh, it feels so good." So,
well, wait till he starts smelling the smoke inside.
He is. That's the problem.
Oh.
And the windows and doors are closed.
Oh.
That's why I was wondering, game called on account of smoke.
It could
happen.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Coming up on some local, I got to amuse him now and then with stuff like that. Coming up on some local business we got to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that national, local, upgrade on your weather forecast will be done, and I wonder if they're going to put the smoke into your weather forecast. That's part of it. Expect some rain to cross over our area sometime this afternoon. I just hope that doesn't come with a lot more lightning and start more fires. We'll talk about that on Friday. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.